In a few short hours, we will all have our hot little hands on Google Chrome, Google's first web browser, and just recorded a few of my thoughts on why I think Google Chrome is going to be a game changer. But I wanted to get into 5 specific reasons why I believe this may very well be your new default web browser. I mean, forget about the fact that you're probably using Google for your search engine anyway. You might even be using Gmail. You may be a Google Docs addict. You know Google, okay? They're not going away anytime soon. I also noted in the other video introduction the comic that was released outlining why this is going to be an amazing departure from what you've been used to with respect to what a web browser is or what it can do for you. This isn't just another web browser. One of the reasons, the first reason, why I believe Google Chrome is going to be a great web browser, not just for power users, but specifically for just regular old users, anybody, is that Google is focused, number one, on user experience. Now, the user experience is, being a browser that just lets you do what you want to do, and that is browse the web. And unfortunately, many web browsers don't necessarily think about the user first. Now, granted, Google is going to have their brand stamped on Google Chrome. I mean, it is their web browser. But you probably already have Google sitting inside your web browser right now, whether it's the Google toolbar or whether it's a search box with the word Google in it. It's kind of already there. But Google has already documented in a very extensive fashion, at least in the comic, how they are showing and illustrating that they are focused on the user experience. It's all about the user experience. In basic documentation, like a new tab page, when you open up a new tab in your browser, inside of Google Chrome, it will show you the most recent visited pages or tabs, or the tabs or web pages that you most frequent, because the chances of you wanting to go to one of those places is pretty high. So they've made the new tab page very user-friendly, potentially predicting where it is you're going to want to go. I mean, that's something small, but it shows that they're thinking about the user, right? I mean, you gotta like that. The second reason why I believe that this is a good thing for the industry and why you may like it and why other people are going to like it is that it's open source. So you could take the code, if you wanted to, in theory, build your own browser with the same code, make it better than what Google has done. Make it your own. You could do your own. They make it possible. But the fact that it's open source is very, very, very telling. On one page of the comic, they said, so we've done all this work with Google Chrome, optimize the the experience for the user and whatnot, and we could lock it away. We can make it proprietary, but that's not really in our best interest. Google, as you very well know, is pretty much an internet-based company. I mean, it is, as far as most people are concerned, like my parents, it is the internet. It's the way people discover the internet. So they're making it open source because they're trying to make the web better for everybody. And certainly they're to be applauded. That, I think, is the hugest smack in the face that Google will have ever delivered to Microsoft. Face it, Microsoft, Internet Explorer, not open source. Firefox, Mozilla, open source. Opera, not open source. So, why is that important to you? Well, I've already stated several times that the future of software is open. The future of the web is most certainly open. So if software is not open source now, it's just inevitable that it will be at some point. It's going to happen. Google is, falling in line with the future by making this open source. I mean, this isn't the first time. You can go to code.google.com and you can download other projects developed by Google engineers that are completely open source. It's a big deal. The open web is the only way to go. It's the only way we're going to make this a better world for everybody, is if we share our knowledge. I mean, keeping things locked in, not cool. I just, proprietary and the web freaks me out. Just freaks me out. Open makes me happy. The third reason why I believe Google Chrome is going to be your browser of choice, potentially, is speed. We know, as I shared in the other video, or you might have looked into the documentation, Google has based Chrome on top of WebKit, which is optimized for speed and is only going to get faster over time. But Google has also developed a JavaScript, I guess you could say engine. I'm trying to keep it in real terms as much as possible here. Let's see here. How would Ponzi explain it? Okay. So right now when JavaScript executes, it executes one part at a time. Well, when it does that, your web browser may freeze. Your entire web browser may freeze because it get hung up on one part of it. Well, with Chrome, the way they've built the way JavaScript is executed is it's done in a way that each thing can happen almost at the same time. And each particular tab executes things differently. So if you have one web page that's open in the foreground or the background that's freezing in some capacity, it doesn't take down the entire web browser. Each tab is run as a separate process. It's all about speed. It's all about efficiency. Now tell me, how many times have you had like 15 tabs open in your web browser and one of them froze? Sucks, doesn't it? Google Chrome is going to fix that for you, and it's going to happen right at version 1.0. So it's only going to get better. It's going to force the other browser makers, that would be Microsoft, we'll see how fast they move, Firefox and or Mozilla, certainly Opera, and then vicariously, potentially, WebKit and Safari, although Safari 4.0 is still an alpha for developers right now. We'll see what Apple does with its next version of its official web browser. They're kind of already going the same direction, and I know there's been rumblings of Firefox 3.1 being optimized for JavaScript as well. Unfortunately, i.e. Internet Explorer 8, hate to tell you, even Microsoft has already openly admitted that JavaScript performance is going to kind of suck. So if you're looking forward to Internet Explorer 8, it's not going to be in the speed department. If you want a fast web browser, you're going to have to switch. I don't know what else to tell you, and I'm saying Google Chrome could very well be it. It's all about speed, baby. It's all about speed. Number 4, I noted that it was cross-platform already, but I'm sorry. I noted that it was open source. What I didn't note was that it's going to be cross-platform. Kind of goes without saying, but the first version is going to be released for Windows, but they haven't really stated a date on when it's going to be available for Mac OS X or Linux. But since it's open source anyway, you could likely compile it on your own if you have that ability or you know how to do that kind of thing, or you could wait for the official binary to be released. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I've had 2 different people ask me, well, what do you think this is going to do with Google's relationship with Firefox? And I'm not sure if it's going to change all that much. I mean, Google has been very supportive of Firefox, but I think largely because they've been trying to dent the market share of Internet Explorer. Has that happened? Has Google helped? Oh, I'm sure they've helped somewhat. I mean, certainly Google makes a lot of money from Firefox and vice versa, because of the ads that are run in searches inside that web browser or through that web browser. So they have no reason to sever ties with Firefox. And hey, if WebKit's open source, if Google Chrome is open source, and Firefox and Mozilla are open source, if all this stuff is open source, where's the competition? It's all open. So I don't even think the world knows how to deal with that. I mean, how can you consider 2 open source projects, completely open, to be competition? How does that work? Seriously, how does that work? Think about it. I mean, I'd be interested to know your answer in that specifically. Number 5, and Google has thought very hard about this, and that is security. This is another big reason why I think you will be switching, or potentially switching, or switching your family and friends over to Google Chrome as the default browser. They've thought about the security model, all the way down to stopping any kind of phishing attacks from happening inside the browser. They're trying to reduce the time it takes from the user clicking on a malicious or potentially malicious website related to phishing. They're trying to get it as close to 0 as humanly possible. So it's constantly going to be updating with the latest phishing information, and that a phishing scam, we've covered this before, but just to recap for those who may not be aware, is basically you get an email that says, hey, you need to change your password to your bank account because we need to verify it. If you click that link, it may not go to the official website. It may go to a website that asks you for username and passwords, and it may not be the official website. They could then take that information and use it to get to your official account on the real website. This type of phishing, they're phishing for information. PHIS. PHISH. Did I spell that right? It's a little late at night right now. You have to pardon me. These scams are happening all the time, and the problem is that it takes about a full day for a phishing scam to be detected and then taken offline. Google's trying to release that time or reduce that time as close to zero as much as possible, and they've architected certain features inside the web browser to make that a possibility. They've also built in a feature that's been available at least inside of Safari that I know of, and I know Internet Explorer 8 will also have this feature, private browsing. This is something that is going to be important, I think, for web surfers. As we continue to roll forward with surfing the web, certainly your privacy is tied very much into security, especially if you are in a public terminal or at a public terminal using the web. If you want to make sure that nothing is being stored, you definitely want to enter in some kind of private mode, and the Google Chrome browser will have that built in right out of the box. So it's good to see they've thought about that, as well as a couple other features related to security and how plugins execute and how the data on your hard drive stays that way and the data in your web browser stays that way. The comic that Google has released that I mentioned in another video kind of explains it all. The best README file that I've ever read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Best comic I've read in a long time. Can't believe I admitted that. Anyway, those are the 5 reasons why I think you need to be paying attention to Google Chrome, even if you don't believe you're ready to switch your default web browser. Give it a shot. It's certainly worth trying. And hey, you can download it. If you don't like it, you can delete it. I think you got plenty of hard drive space. You might as well leave it around. You never know when you might want to try it. You never really know what you're missing until you know what you're missing. Maybe you're afraid to try it. I don't know. My email address, again, chris@pirillo.com. You're also welcome to stop by the website. We've got this chat room open pretty much all the time. We're typically talking tech. I've got this live video feed going out over the net. Even, this late at night, I'm still staying up and talking software with a whole bunch of geeks. I don't have much of a life. I get excited over web browsers. What are you going to do? Well, you're going to stop by and you're going to say hello. We're live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at live.pirillo.com. We'll see you later.